I'm going to try and do this reading for the children quickly because it's from the 5-minute stories. I've only got 8 minutes before the video needs sorting out. So we're going to read 7 Ravens, a Polish fairy tale. There was once a poor widow who had 7 sons and a daughter. The daughter, Anne, was a good girl, but the 7 brothers were wild as the hills. One day, the widow was baking a pie. As she rolled out the pastry, the noisy troop came into the kitchen shouting, "Pie! When will it be ready?" "When it is cooked," she said crossly. "Let me finish, then we can all eat." But the boys just ran about the hot kitchen, pushing and shoving and leaving muddy boot marks all over the floor. "Quiet! I wish you were ravens instead of noisy boys," she cried. Her eyes widened in horror. The boys shrank, feathers covered them, their mouths became beaks, and they flew out of the door. Anne rushed to the window, but they were already out of sight. Mother and daughter sat weeping, and not even the smell of burning pie could rouse them. The next day Anne told her mother that she would find her brothers and bring them home. She set off with nothing but her needle, thread and scissors. She walked until she came to a strange house in the woods. It was made of silver, and the woman who opened the door was dressed in a long silver robe. "Oh, my husband will be home soon. There is no supper, and I have to mend his cloak," she said, all in a rush. "I could mend the cloak," said Anne, taking out her needle, "and then you can cook the supper." The woman was delighted and let her in. Anne sat in the corner and mended the beautiful cloak with the tiny stitches. When the husband came in, also dressed in silver, he invited Anne to join them for the supper of roast chicken. The silver man asked Anne where she was going. She told them the whole story of her brothers. "We are the moon's helpers," said the silver man. "I will ask her if she has seen your brothers." As the wife cleared the table after supper, she gave Anne the chicken bones and said, "Keep these in your pocket. They might come in useful." When the silver man returned the next morning, he told Anne that the moon had seen 7 ravens flying around Amber Mountain. Anne thanked them and set off. After several days she came to a halt at Amber Mountain. Its sides were as deep as glass. Anne remembered the chicken bones. She pushed one into the surface of the mountain and stood on it. Then she put the second bone in and stood on that. And so she slowly climbed to the top of the mountain. There she found 7 ravens, her brothers, but an old evil witch was there too. "Your brothers are under my spell. You can release them by remaining silent for 7 years. And with an evil cackle she flew off. Anne climbed down the mountain, and when she got home she could tell her mother nothing. 4 years passed until one day Anne met a prince who was struck by Anne's quiet ways. He came by every day and asked her to marry him. She smiled her acceptance but did not utter a word. 3 more years passed, and the prince and baby had a baby son. Prince and Anne had a baby son. Now the queen had never really approved of her son marrying such a poor girl, and so she liked to make mischief. One day she accused Anne of trying to poison the baby. The prince was horrified, and when he asked Anne if she had done such a terrible thing, she was unable to reply, so he sent her to the dungeons. 3 days passed, and Anne was brought into the courtyard where everyone waited to see what would happen next. Suddenly there was a great flapping of wings, and 7 ravens landed in a circle around Anne. In a blink of an eye there stood her brothers, restored to human shape. Well, you can imagine what a lot Anne had to tell. They talked into the night. The 7 brothers went to collect their mother, and when they all came back together, the prince promised her that she would never have to do a day's work again. That is the end. Thank you for listening, children. Bye-bye, Abraham. Bye-bye, Chad. Rachel Mary, Yamea Rose, Jude. Love you all. God bless. That was a funny story.